Hi, well, this is Trace Young from the Mommy Rebellion, and today I'm interviewing Amanda Lopes Bergoli, who is a business consultant and an amazing mom to twin 11-year-olds. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, so glad to be on with you, Chase.
It's so great to have you because it has been quite a fun fall trying to figure out what we're doing with our children this year.
It's been quite an interesting 7 months, I think,
Yeah.
with kids. Yes.
So just take us back a little bit. Your kids are normally in public school. And so when the lockdown happened, they were with you 24/7?
Yes, they've been in public school since kindergarten. And then, yeah, as soon as the lockdown happened, they've been home. I run my business out of my home, which made it very convenient for when things happen. I definitely know that I was in a better position than a lot of people when shit hit the fan. But yeah, they have been with me ever since that happened. And we decided to do remote schooling when the different options were offered this fall. So they're still home.
And how is that going? I know you've had at least a week into it. Is the remote learning going better this time? Too soon to tell?
It's definitely going better in the terms that this is going into the fall. Our public school system here, at least, was able to put a lot of thought into making sure that remote learners were actually going to be in some sort of an educational program.
Yeah.
When things, abruptly ended in March last year, the teachers jumped in and did as best they could. I mean, talk about people who were under a ton of pressure. I would not have wanted to be in their shoes, but it was very chaotic. It was very all over the place. It was super, super reliant on parents to guide their kids and help them find the things to do throughout the day. And I think so many people gave up and had such a hard time. And we were really worried about, was that going to be the kind of what they were going to walk back into in the fall? But our school district ended up investing in a like an online learning program that
Mm-hmm.
the remote learners could take part in. And so far, I really like it. It's very independent, child-led learning that is minimal reliance on me, although we do make a schedule every week because it kind of has to
Yeah.
mesh with the schedule, but it's adaptive to them. So far, so good. They haven't been complaining about anything, and I've actually been able to work.
Yay. So this newer system is allowing you to get more work done than sort of the threw everything at you this spring.
Yeah, because that's the concept that it was in the spring. It was like, here's all of these 10,000 things that you can do. And it's almost like, when you go to a restaurant and they give you the menu that's like 4 pages long and you can't decide
Yeah.
at all, as opposed to like you go somewhere and like, this is what they have. And you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I want to eat. This is going to allow me more time on my business. We're still getting back into it. So I'm trying to like craft a schedule right now of like,
Yeah.
how long should they be working on individual units and modules?
Hmm.
That way we can come up with something that will like align from their schedule with my schedule, and then we can take breaks together. And then we
Yeah.
can do like another, it goes back to the work blocks that I talked to
Hmm.
the community about last year. Maybe even longer than last year now.
Might have been longer than last year. It's been a little while. I'll be sure to link that in the
Spice.
description. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're thinking about trying to sort of set up family work blocks. I'm curious because this has been an issue that we've had in my house because I work from home, but now my husband is also working from home full time, and that's been true since he got off paternity in April, and that's through till at least the end of the year. That our internet, like we sometimes have to be aware of who's going to be on a video call. Then we can't necessarily have the kids on Netflix at the same time. Do you have any of that kind of stuff that you're looking at trying to fit into your schedule as well?
Yeah, luckily, most of the online learning that they're doing is not video heavy, where they
Hmm.
be on a program. They're using Google Meet this year with
Okay.
the teachers instead of Zoom, which has actually worked out really, really well. But yes, I'm finding I have to be aware when do they have scheduled meetings, because they do have them periodically scheduled with the remote learning teacher, and just adjusting my own schedule. That way we're not like eating up the bandwidth and I'm not able to like be on a video call with the client or something. But I mean, like I said, I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, you know, it's so interesting. This year has been like a giant transition period that has never ended.
Yeah.
So it's been important to be fluid. It's been important to try to look ahead, but not too far ahead, because you never know what's going to happen weeks down the line. So we're trying to do it in 2-week periods and look at building, like what you were calling it, like a family work schedule. I think that that's going to end up being what works best for us, so that we can be, you know, everyone, I guess if you want to call it, independently and
Yep.
learning in different parts of the house, or working in my case. And then everyone can kind of reconvene together and, you know, have the opportunity to have snacks together or just time outside or whatever it happens to be.
So how are you feeling with having everyone home all the time? Are you still finding time to have, you know, alone time? Or, you know, because that's like my hardest struggle is like everybody's here all the time. And when, you know, Rob and I try and do lunch and breaks at similar times. And then of course the kids want to spend too. And it's, you know, trying to figure out where we as individuals fit, I think it's a lot more challenging.
I think it is the hardest part. And I would, I was almost going to be really sarcastic and say, what's alone time?
Well, you could be completely sarcastic about
Yeah,
that,
no,
but
because it's the alone time and it's relationship time that tends
yeah,
to come first. Um, but a lot of that has been because it's been inconsistent in the past, and then it was summer, and we really it's so funny to say this. We adhere to being super unstructured time, like that's kind of a weird thing to say, but it is true. So it's like, you know, like the, you know, bedtimes are out the window in the summertime. Wake up times, I don't really care. I try to get up before noon, you know, that kind of a thing. So the alone time or time to self has definitely been a struggle. I feel like it's going to start to become a little bit easier now that we do a semi-structure in place, where there is going to be a wake-up time window. There is a earlier bedtime than there used to be. And I'm trying already to figure out, like, one of my favorite self-care things is taking like nice hot detox
hmm
now that the weather's not ridiculously hot. So I'm like, ooh, I'm really looking at trying to carve back out 1 to 2 nights a week that I can at least have that
yeah,
hour and a half to myself. But it's a struggle, and it's constantly like looking at what's going on and where can you fit it in, where before it was definitely more of a priority. And
yeah,
I'm striving to get back to that being more of a priority again.
yeah. I think going into fall and winter, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, we've got to look at where we can get our self-care fits in,
Yeah.
because we're normally inside more, and it could be even more isolating, you know, if people are not going and seeing everybody as much. I know it's been a struggle with me with my husband being home. I was able to find quiet bits. You're actually biting. Oh my goodness, we've got teeth. The actual bits and pieces with all the kids. And now, you know, sometimes that's when he's taking a break, so he wants to talk at me, and I love him, but I was like having 5 minutes of peace and quiet. So yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, literally post or when the lockdown first happened, our dates consisted of driving to the store, me staying in the car with the baby, but that drive was the closest thing to a date we got for months and months on it. So
Yeah, but it's all about making it work
yeah.
with what you've, you know, like with what the situation is that you have. You know, something that's been working for me was I ended up being able to find a planner that we're using. We have up on the wall. designed to be a 2-week planner, but because I have 2 kids, I'm just using it as a one. So one kid gets the top, the other one gets the bottom. But it's helping us see what everyone has to do each day. It gives me the opportunity to put, like, I have a section up there that says when I have business calls, so that they know that. I have a section that has the days that, you know, dad is home, so that they know what days they have with him, because they may want to find, because they're doing independent learning, which benefit, you know, it's very similar to homeschooling. Like, they can make the choice. Do I want to, like, you know, bulk some of my work in, say, on Monday, and do twice the amount of work so that I can free up my Tuesday because dad's home Tuesdays. So it's definitely, you know, you need to have that structure. I needed to have it out there and visual, and I'm looking at the board right now because it seems to be working really, really well. And once we get the interview up, I'll share for people so that they can see it, because I know a lot of people are struggling, like, how do you compartmentalize your days and see where, you know, that something like this can actually help people maybe find the pockets of time where they can maybe put a sign on the door and say, like, I'm breathing for 5 minutes, please don't come in. Or, you know, like, Wednesday's the day that we have lunch together, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm so glad I was going to ask you about your board, how that was working. I've got something similar. It's just a week board. But it's helpful because then they know when they have Girl Scouts, I put on all my calls. And so it really helps them, and it keeps a lot of the, what are we doing today? Questions at bay now, as almost everybody can read. I do not know what is going on in my kitchen right now, if you can hear that.
Life is going on.
Life is going on in my kitchen. And we can also keep notes. We can write, like, what the things that have to happen. And then the other thing that I've been kind of embracing with the change in season is Friday afternoons are for movies. We're doing an intro to film course that somebody else put together who's homeschooling for the first time this year. So we started with silent films and we're moving forward. And there's always a choice. There's always a list of different films we can pick from. And so we're just kind of doing that. And it feels like a way to kind of slow everybody down at the end of the week before we move into weekend things, as well as just, you know, provide some nice continuity as well. So, any words of advice or anything else that you want to share that we haven't covered?
You know, I think it's just so important for people to continually and consistently assess what's going on in their life, what's working for them and what isn't working for them, and giving yourself the grace. I let you use the word grace a lot, and I really like that, but giving yourself the grace and the ability to be fluid, and for things to not work perfectly, but know that it's okay. And you can course correct and adjust all the time at the end of the week, at the end of the day. I mean, it's, you know, where we are not living in this finite box. We have this openness that we can work with. And that holds true whether, you know, you're a new parent and trying to figure out how to, like, build a life around a baby, or whether you have kids who have opted to go and you've opted for them to go back to school, whether it's full-time or hybrid. So many states are doing so many, or whether people have chosen to embark on homeschooling for the first time. I was actually torn between, do we do the remote schooling through school, or do I jump into homeschooling? And homeschooling still scares me a little bit. Like, I don't want to be in charge of creating that curriculum yet. I don't feel like I'm qualified with kids who are 11 who really need so many of the fundamental things. And when the school came up with this really awesome adaptive learning program, I was like, hell yeah, we're all in.
Yeah, you're really lucky. I have been talking to lots of parents, and that seems to be somewhat unique. A lot of the kids, like in my kids' Girl Scouts and stuff, are doing a version of the hybrid where they're going to school a couple days a week and they're staying at home, you know, the other days. And I'm hoping to grab somebody to interview to see how that goes, because that seems to, at least in my neck of the woods, seems to be pretty popular. But I totally sort of feel like I gave up a little bit. I bought the kids, it's this program called Adventure Academy that's gamified learning. but it's for like 9 to 13. So my older three are doing it, and they get game money for learning stuff, and then they can go trip out their sim and trip out their house. And so for my kids, that's motivation to go and do stuff. But I was kind of like, then I don't have to worry about the grammar and the geography, and I can just focus on like the math and the, and making sure the reading and some of the science, but they can get all those other extraneous little bits and pieces in playing this game. And just looking at this year and the fact that, we've got a baby that's getting mobile, I was like, it's worth this. I think it was $60 for the year. I was like, it is worth it for me to just know that there's some background learning going on, and I don't have
Yeah.
to be curating it. So yeah.
Well, that's the perfect example. It's like there's so much fucking guilt going on with everybody right now, and a lot of judgment,
Yeah.
and really unnecessary, because people, like, my life is different than your life, is different than my neighbor's life, and it's so unfair for us to be judging other people and to be, putting our own reality on other people, because we're all making the choices that we need to make for our families right now, and that may change tomorrow, and that may change a week down the road, but we're all in this together. Like, that's the thing. So it's figuring out like what works for you. Maybe you invest in shit that you didn't invest in before, because it gives you the break, and you can say, thank God I have to create this right now. It's just, it's finding what works and being able to be fluid and say, shit, this isn't working anymore. Do I need to change it? Or whatever it happens to be, but also being supportive of the other people around you. I do find someone with the hybrid thing, because from what I understand, even our own district, it's very different than the remote learning, at least that we're doing. So there's so many different things going on right now. I think it's really interesting because we've never had this in our world before. I have a feeling what's happening and what has happened, I would not be surprised at all to see this change the face of education and to change the face of even public education. I think this is going to lead to changes.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Don't know what they are yet, but I personally don't think that we're going to see this outdated, archaic model of public schooling, which is this 7 hours a day outside of home, that doesn't really need to be the way that it is. It's a great learning environment, and it can be, but I think that all of this is going to open people's minds to the fact that public schooling doesn't have to be that way. So, I mean, I've been trying to find, like, what's the good in all of this? Like, I don't think this is a year that we need to be throwing away. I don't think we need to be cursing it into the ground. I think there's a lot to be learned from what's going on, and we're being presented with opportunities to open different conversations with our kids and families. And, for those of us who have them at home more, like, maybe they're seeing more of our businesses. Maybe there's some budding entrepreneurs that are going to come out of this. I mean, we don't know. But I think that there are really possibly amazing changes in the future that are going to happen because of what's going on now. I'm super.
Yeah. One last question. I know a lot of people were hoping that kids would get to have more social time regardless of what they chose for the school thing. I know that was a lot of the push for reopening schools. Do your kids feel like that? I mean, is that still a struggle for you guys? It is for us. Like, my kids are still like, oh my God, I want to see my friends,
Yeah, and it's really interesting because, I'll be the first to say I may have twins, but they are two completely different human beings.
Yeah.
I have one child who is very much like me, and being at home is an optimal environment. Very few choicely chosen friends. And, I have another one who's very much an extrovert, and being able for that one, being able to keep her in dance classes. Thankfully, our dance studio has really done a great job. It was small to begin with, but now it's even smaller. So I feel okay with her dancing in trios and, being in these smaller classes. But it's been a struggle. I think it's going to continue to be a struggle. but it's been, it has opened us to like, how do we create different ways of staying in contact with people? So, you know, we do messenger kids, and they spend time, you know, talking with friends and playing games that way. And we, like you, have had like our little pods,
Yep.
you know, so for my son, like we have, you know, one or two very specific people that we've been staying with this whole time. And the same thing with my daughter too. So we have had that. It's just, it's much more, it's smaller and more contained than
Yeah.
it is. And it's just relying more on virtual connection than it was before.
Yeah, yeah, that's much of what we're doing too. My kids didn't have Kids Messenger, and then the pandemic broke out, and then I was like, yeah, yeah, you can have this, absolutely. And
Right.
it's actually been great because certain of my kids have gotten much better at spelling and recognizing words now that they do the messenger
Ah,
stuff
that's
than they
cool.
did before. So just looking for the bright side of things. Um,
Yeah, that's a nice benefit to notice from that too. Yep.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I also like the fact that you can check and see who they've been talking to and check their messages and stuff. And so you can have that sense of safety that I think is important when kids are first, you know, getting into the internet more than perhaps they have been.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Well, thank you. This has been fun. If you
Thanks for having
We're
me.
gonna post details below, including a picture of and a link, probably a picture and a link to the whiteboard that you have that's working in your house
Yes.
for the schedule. And
I think I'll throw up the one for the work blocks video that
yeah,
I
yeah,
do, because I think that that may be helpful in teaching, well, teaching or reteaching people, like, how do you work in those kind of smaller blocks?
yeah,
It's something that people would be able to benefit from, potentially looking at doing like family work / learning blocks. So I'll
yeah.
put that one in too.
Yeah, 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 because I know how much that made it so much easier the last time I had small children. And I also think that for anybody that especially has like the younger or that, you know, really early elementary, they're thinking about only trying to do stuff for 45 minutes or even less is a much
Yeah.
more approachable thing than, oh, we're going to spend 2 hours learning and then have a break, which would be like if you were working in a 9 to 5, that might be how your schedule goes. So yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
or older
definitely.
kids would be appropriate for that. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm not gonna ask my kids to do 2 hour. Like we pretty much decided on 45 minutes to
Yeah,
do that and to have breaks. So yeah, I think it's very appropriate for, you know, right up probably through middle school,
yeah.
to function in that smaller time frame.
Well,
Yeah,
because I'm scarily, I have a high schooler now. I even think that just, you know, getting up and moving every hour is super important too. So, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it was lovely to have you, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.